In this three-part series, we are going to talk about how to vet out a ThemeForest template. Who is this for? Well, it's for a service provider in need of choosing a template for their end client, or an individual looking to create his or her own website. The three major topics that we are going to discuss will cover design, template, and the company that provides templates. So for design, we're going to look at what are the gotchas in terms of the template itself, the aesthetics, the look and feel. The second part we're going to talk about is we're going to analyze the template. Essentially, the gotchas to look out for in the actual template itself that you're going to purchase. And lastly, we're going to vet out the company. And that's the gotchas to look out for in the actual company itself or the developer that created the template. So let's get started with design. So I'm going to go to ThemeForest. We'll select theme, and we're going to start analyzing a couple themes. So we want to go under WordPress, and I'm going to choose popular items. We'll look at some of the more popular items, popular themes that ThemeForest has to offer. I'm just going to select a couple that I've looked at in the past, but by no means am I endorsing one or not endorsing one. These are basically just examples to kind of demonstrate the vetting out process that I use in terms of vetting out a particular theme. So I'm going to look for one that is called Brooklyn. I know it's one of the popular ones, so just give me a second. Brooklyn, so it's this one right here. And let's go ahead and look at the live preview for the Brooklyn template. So, my first impression of this template is that it's a very nice template. They definitely have a lot of options in terms of the different in terms of the multi-facing capabilities. So this particular template, we'll go over more of this concept in the second part, which is when we look at templates and we're vetting out templates. But just for a quick explanation here, this particular template has different multi-facing designs. So when you see demo 27, demo 3, demo 28, what that means is that this template has the ability to mutate and have different designs, a different template. So you're buying not just one template, you're really buying a lot of templates, because this particular template can morph and is very customizable to look very, very different. So we'll just choose one, and I'll just choose the first one. So demo 27. So let's look at this public facing, or this version of the template, and just by a quick glance, it is nice. It's a nice parallax type of website. My first impression of it is that it is kind of image heavy type of website, in that you have to understand when you're buying these templates, you can't use the images that come with the templates. These are stock images, and of course they're going to use images that look phenomenal. The key is that the images that you put in, are they as high quality as the images that they use? That's one, because they're using stock photos, and the stock photos, they're always phenomenal looking. Your photos, are they high quality as well? The second thing to think about too is that you're looking at this image in the background. Well, it's a very generic image. It's not very busy, because a busy image, if it's put into the background, it's going to, even though it's dimmed out, it could intrude with the content that's on top of the image. So this part right here. So you want to choose images that portray the same busyness as the stock content or stock image that they use, as well as you could take it a step further and choose images that have the same color tone, and that way, if you're not exactly a designer or have that particular talent or that eye for it, you can't go wrong if you're gonna copy similar images that they use. So that's something to think about. The first thing I want to talk about is the logo. So with this particular template, the logo fits well with this area here. What you need to think about is that when you buy this template and you start using it, will your logo look good in this particular template? This is using a rectangular logo. Now I'm thinking, okay, if you had a circular logo or maybe even a square logo, it's not going to look as nice. So when you're buying a template, you have to be somewhat of a visionary in terms of, okay, it looks good when they use their content and they put their example up because they're staging it. It's like the ideal situation. However, when you start putting your stuff in, is it still going to look nice? And a lot of times, end users don't understand that concept. So if you're a service provider, you need to explain that, oh, we're buying this template, and there's two ways to kind of get to. There's two ways to kind of work this out. You either make your content fit within the template that you're purchasing, or you buy a template that works with the content that you have. Okay, so let's go with the example of we are basically looking for a template and then we have to make our content fit within the template. So what that means is that we look at the logo. Okay, the logo, hopefully we have a rectangular logo. Hopefully we have a logo where if it's condensed to a small size, that it will still be good. It will still look fine. Some logos are very detailed, very complex, where if you scale down the logo too much, you're going to lose that detail and it's not going to look nice. And you're going to miss some of the key elements of that logo. And that's not a good thing. And if that's the case, that could be a deal breaker because logo is very important. It's your branding. So with that in mind, it's not always a good idea, at least with the logo situation, to have your logo fit within the template. The template has to portray a logo, your logo has to be the star, has to be the king. So consider that. The logo is kind of a special scenario where we might have to not work in reverse, meaning having the logo fit into the template. Now with certain templates, you may be able to adjust the height of the menus very easily. There might be a interface in the admin panel that with a quick number adjustment it could expand the height, but that's on a template by template basis, and you could definitely email the template company or developer to see if that capability is available. If not, you may need to have a web developer to code and make that custom coding adjustment yourself. I prefer not to take that route just because that revolves going into the code and making sure it still works when it gets into like mobile views and all that stuff. So ideally, one is to choose a template where your logo could be the star and it's not going to dramatically affect the logo too much in terms of the sizing, and two, to see if you really like a particular template, to see if there's an option to easily change the height of the area. So let's go down. So if we're going by the idea of we're going to fit content into a template we're purchasing, we have to make sure that, okay, this area here has this type of alignment. Let's say we do want to keep this portion here, because certain templates it's customizable enough where you can, if you don't want this part, okay, we can take it out and swap it with something else. But let's assume that we can't do that. Well, we're going to have to come up with content for this. Do you have something that will fit all of this? We can't assume that these icons will be available or customizable. Typically they are, but let's assume there's not. Do we have something that would fit well with the icons they offer? And are your contents going to be nicely 3-sentence long? You're going to have to really work with an editor to try to find to try to portray your content in the spacing that's available. So in this case it looks nice, but see, the theme provider, the theme service provider here, they're trying to sell the template and they're staging it very nice, content fits perfectly, and sometimes it's not going to be like that. Sometimes it's 2 sentences here, then it's 3, and maybe this one has 5. You're going to have to work it so that it looks nice, three sentences long. Then we have this section here. This is fine. It's probably easy to create or to come up with. And down here, are we going to have 4 photos? It doesn't have to be people, but can you come up with 4, maybe 3? I know that this part could be adjustable to have up to 4, but can definitely be less than 4. It could be up to 5. That's up to the theme, the template itself. And do we have content for this? So again, the key is that when you're looking at a template, can you have content, or can you make content up so that it fits correctly in the spacing and in the areas that the template has? There might be some flexibilities with the template where you can nix out a specific area, but just keep in mind in case that there isn't. Now, if your content is a type where it's like very, very wordy and you don't have a lot of images, then you need to cut down on your content, your verbiage. You might have to cut down the verbiage and make it only like 2 sentences long. And then for the images, you might have to adjust for additional funds to purchase stock images. So keep in mind, if you don't have high quality images, or images just don't work with the template, you might have to purchase additional ones. The images in the background here, they tend to be high quality, high def, really large images, width and height wise. So if you have all these small images, sometimes clients, they take pictures off their phones and it's just like low quality, and also like just the size of it is small, and you have to blow it up. It could not be high definition, so consider that if you're a service provider. So, and then there's a couple smaller mechanics that most theme providers built into their themes that allow you to easily adjust. It's basically the secondary colors. Like in this case, it's yellow. You should be able to change that, but definitely double check with the theme provider. Say, hey, are these colors here, the secondary colors and tertiary colors, are they adjustable? And if they are adjustable, are they preset, or are they adjustable where we could just put in a hex color, and it could be any color that we want. So for me, how I do it is that as a service provider, I will have my clients go to ThemeForce and have them choose up to 5 templates that they like the most, and then give it an actual order, like rank them from 1 to 5, which ones are the ones that they like. And then from there, I'll take those 5 templates and I'll look through them and go through this vetting out process, the design part, the template, and the company. But since we're talking about design, in terms of design, I will look at the templates. I would actually ask them for their content as well, or look at their original website. If they have a website up already, I would look at that and see what kind of content they have, and then see, okay, does it work out what I just explained? Does it work with the templates they're trying to choose, or what they're trying to that they like the most? And 9 out of 10 times, 2 of them you can easily knock off, like saying, hey, I don't see the templates that you've chose work with the content that you have. It's going to take a lot more work in terms of either coming up with new content or editing down or the content you have, and purchasing a lot more colors, or I'm sorry, a lot more pictures, as well as the logo placements don't work, or there's just something about the template that just doesn't work out. And then typically, a lot of these templates, they are flexible. So when I'm knocking stuff off, I'll probably knock out like the 3rd or the 5th place one. Very rarely would I knock out the 1st place one, just because that's what the client really want So I typically don't do that unless it's really off, or there's another gotchas that we can talk about later in terms of the actual theme company or the actual template itself, where I would knock out the number one place. But yeah, I would let the the end client choose up to 5 and then vet out at least from the design. That would be step 1. Now the goal is that I try to choose a template that is about 90% of what the client wants. If the client wants a particular template, but then mentions, oh, I like this part, I like 90% of it, or I like it, but I need this adjustment done here, and you're looking at the adjustments, and as a service provider, you should be able to gauge, okay, is this going to be a lot of work to try to finagle it in? You might further follow up with the theme developer or theme company that is selling themes to ask, hey, is this particular customization that is needed, is it something that's built into the admin where it's easily adjusted with a couple of mouse clicks and some configuration changes, or is this a custom coding thing? And from there, based on the responses, you'll be able to at least gauge, okay, are you comfortable moving forward with a template where you have to make a custom adjustment like that or not? Typically, if it's a coding thing, I typically will stay away from it because it will be unsupported. Meaning, even if you chose to do go into the code, make the custom coding change itself, you don't know that later on, if there's a new upgrade or update to it, that it would revert the changes. You just don't know, even if you're using best practices of like using child themes. But that's more an advanced thing. Plus, there are other better fish in the sea to choose from. Again, you have the clients choose up to 5. So if one of them is requiring you to do a lot more work to get it to work, well, you got others to choose from. In addition, from my experience, clients typically, when they're asking for these types of customization, it's not a hill for them to die on. If you explain it well, saying, hey, this type of customization that you're trying to accomplish, it's going to require a lot more work, and that may exceed our scope or the budget. If you explain it like that, a lot of times they will understand, right? Because a lot of it's going to be small pieces. It's going to be like they don't like the logo to be, I don't know, instead of on the left hand side they want it on the right for some reason. I know it's not the best example, but a lot of times they're going to nitpick some small stuff that it's not really a big deal. Anything that's going to be bigger, it's going to be like functionality types, and that's something else that you definitely will scope out already in terms of the due diligence phase. So again, I try to choose templates that matches 90%. The 10% that's missing, that should be easily accommodated through the back end that's already built into the admin interface, like changing the font type or the colors, nixing out certain sections, swapping background image that's a given, things like that. That 10% is basically just non-coding adjustments. And the last tip that I have is that depending on the company and the budget, I may already build into the quoting process or the quoting budget 3 templates where I could just purchase the 3 templates that the client wants. I will build that into the budget, and typically templates, they're like at the most like $60 each, so I'll build in 180 already into the budget so that I can purchase all 3 and experiment. Okay, which ones offer what type of interface on the back end? Is it easy to use? What can it do? It just depends on the scope of the project and the budget. But my point is that I'll budget between 1 to 3. A lot of times it's just 3 into the quote already, so that I could just purchase it, download it, install it on a dev server, and experiment. And that way, when I'm ready to go to the next step of presenting it to my client, I already know the capabilities of what the template can and can't do. So when they want some tweaks and adjustments, I can tell them, okay, no problem, easy, I can take care of that. Or which one, or hey, yeah, that's not really built into the template. It's gonna cause this much extra because it's outside the scope. So that's it for design. In our next part, we'll talk about the template. So this is part 2 in our 3-part series in terms of how to vet out a ThemeForest template. In the first video, we talked about designs, the gotchas in terms of design. In this video, we'll talk about the gotchas in template. So let's get started. So I'm going to go to ThemeForest and go to WordPress, and we'll look at a popular theme. And let's take a look at Aveda. Let's go to, well, on the right hand side is where we're going to be focusing on. And on the right hand side, we see metrics that I use in terms of vetting out the template once we've figured out what top 3 templates work in terms of the design. So the first thing I want to look at is the sales volume. So typically I will look for templates that have high sales volume. For the case of Aveda, it's definitely really high. So that's definitely a pro. A positive thing. Now, I'm not too concerned that there's 382,474 sales for this particular template, meaning, okay, there's a possibility that there's 382,000 blah 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 websites using the same template, because in terms of templates, there's 2 types. Well, I categorize them under 2 types. One, it's a framework template, and the second one is a OneOff template, and I'll go into detail of what the differences are. Aveda is a framework type template, so because of that, I'm not concerned about the high sales volume, and that my website's gonna look, or it's gonna be the same as 382,474 websites out there. I'm not too concerned about that. The next thing I want to do is I'm gonna look at comments. So a high comment count is, it tells me that, okay, there's a lot of activity that's going on with a template, and I don't really assume it's bad or good. I mean, if it's high, that doesn't tell me anything. I mean, if it's a high amount of comments but they're all praises, well, that's definitely a good sign. But if it's a high number of comments but they're all complaints of, oh, this doesn't work and that doesn't work, well, that's something I would consider. But I would consider it in terms of, okay, if somebody complains or makes a comment that there's something broken in the template, I consider the fact, okay, does the support team for the template, do they respond quickly? And do they respond often? That to me is important. And how they respond is also important as well. So yeah, it is a problem that there's a lot of comments that point out issues. But I also consider, yeah, if they respond well and they respond quickly, that's another thing. And also, I also consider, okay, well, in conjunction that it's been released since, let's see, last year, August of last year, and there is a lot of comments that point out issues. Well, that means that by the time I purchase it a year later, well, a lot of those bugs may have already been fixed. So that also gives me security in terms of, oh, okay, yeah, a lot of the kinks have been worked out. So that could be a good thing as well. But yeah, comments, I just read through it to see what kind of comments are posted. Are they praises? Are they negative in terms of something's broken? But then I'll also analyze, okay, what kind of responses and how fast. I also will look at, what kind of questions are being asked in terms of, do I get a lot of people asking, oh, can the template do this? Can the template do that? If I get a lot of, if I'm reading through and I feel that there's a lot of those types of questions, that indicates to me that perhaps it's not user friendly in terms of the backend. That's something I would consider. But for me, I'm experienced enough to know if the questions being asked are like, oh, is that just a non developer asking a question of basic stuff that should easily be answered, or should easily be answered, or are they like high more complex questions? So I consider that as well. But yeah, that's what I look for in terms of comments. If you have questions in terms of the capabilities of template, this is the section where you would ask the support team the specific questions you have, and then gauge how quickly they respond and how detailed the responses are. So that way it gives you a feel later on if you actually have to, once you purchase it and you actually have to interact with the support team. The next thing I will look at is the star ratings. So the star rating is a little bit tricky. I don't look at the star ratings just by themselves. I also look at how many people have submitted a star rating. So as an example, if it's a 5-star rating but there's only like 2 or 3 submissions for that rating, I would dig a little bit deeper, just because it's just the volume, the metric volume is just so low. Same thing with 1 star. If it's a 1-star rating but there's only 2 or 3 people, okay, it might be just those two or 3. So yeah, I would consider star ratings in terms of ratings, but also overall sales volume. These metrics work together. In this case, it's 4.77 stars and it's 19,444 ratings. So that's a pretty good gauge that it's a high quality template. The next one come in conjunction as well. These two metrics, and for me, these two are probably going to be the most important metrics for me. When it was last updated and when it was created. So in this example, the last updated was essentially the same month, so like 2 weeks ago, or just a week ago. So that's important. So that tells me that the template's still being supported by the author. It's also recently created. So that typically will tell me that yeah, it's a modern template. It's most likely going to be compatible with the latest things, and we'll go with these metrics. We'll talk about these metrics later, as well as the latest version of software, latest version of WordPress. Sorry. So yeah, I typically will look for templates that are updated at least within the same year, but also created recently as well. So if it's created like over 3 years ago and it hasn't been updated recently, that kind of indicates that either the author is not keeping up to date or it's no longer being supported. So definitely consider these two to be towards the top of your grading criteria. If you are creating an e-commerce website, you're most likely going to use something like WooCommerce, maybe a different type of popular e-commerce plugins. Just double check to make sure that it's compatible with the e-commerce plugin that you're going to use. If you don't see it supported here, you might, if it's a not as well known e-commerce plugin, you may ask the theme author to see can it be supported. But just take it a grain of salt in terms of what the response is, because they're definitely gonna try to sell the template. So most likely you'll probably be using WooCommerce, and you'll be able to easily gauge if it's going to be compatible with WooCommerce, if the template is retail ready, e-commerce ready. Most likely for the next one, for software version, if it's updated pretty recently and it's created pretty recently, the version of WordPress will be recent as well. So as of right now, the most recent version of WordPress is 4.9.1. So we can see that it's definitely compatible with that. But this is kind of a given based on when it was last updated. Lastly, Depending on the clients that I work with, some of them will require specific customizations to the template, and they're visual type of people. So instead of making the customizations live within code or within the configuration at the time of development, if it's a big customization, I may have to provide some visuals to kind of get it green lighted, as well as provide some changes to the scope because it's additional. Having layered PSD files is definitely a bonus that I like to see. And that way I could fire up my Photoshop and make the visual changes in Photoshop and present it to the clients to get them to greenlight it. And that allows me to make lots of variations quickly without actually having to spend the time to code it or configure it. So as a service provider, having layer PSDs is nice. It's not the end of the world if you don't get one, depending on what you need to do in terms of offering visuals, but it's definitely nice. And last thing that I typically would look for, and this one's going to be really tricky because from my experience, every theme that I looked at will always say well documented, or well documented. So typically with a lot of the themes, you could ask to get the themes because they have them online. You can either Google search for them, or you can ask in the support or in the comment area, like, hey, can I take a look at your documentation? Because again, a lot of times it's going to be on their website, on the author's website. And by looking at the documentation, I can gauge a lot of things from it. With a lot of documentations, there'll be screenshots that will show you the backend of the template where you would be making the configuration changes, and that allows me to kind of easily gauge if I could do something or not. Typically, the high quality templates will have really good documentation. They definitely put a lot of work in terms of making the documentation easy to read, lots of pictures, really good 1, 2, 3 step instructions, and that kind of gives me peace of mind that if it's well documented, they've already taken the extra step to really produce high quality stuff. So it also I can kind of in a way tell, okay, if it's well documented, most likely the support is going to be good as well. If I need to email the support team later on in terms of questions, or if I have issues with the template. So documentation, definitely worth it to take it to the next level and try to get your hands on the actual documentation. If it's not on the website, I'm pretty sure they could just email it to you. A lot of them comes in PDF files, so it's not really a big deal for them to zip it up and send it to you so you can take a good look. And that's basically it in terms of the right hand side. So in the past video, when we were talking about design, I talked about complex / frameworks type templates, and then the one-off. So Aveda is a framework, and what that means is that when I look at Aveda, and in the previous video we looked at Brooklyn, we went to the live preview, and in the live preview, let's scroll down, we see that with this one template, it can morph itself and make it and can look like a whole bunch of other ones. So let's open up a couple. I'm gonna click on dentist, click on daycare, we'll click on health. Let's do one more, photography. So definitely different industries, and just quickly take a quick look at what each one looks like, and we can kind of easily gauge, like, wow, they look dramatically different from each other. Wow, this one really looks different. Okay. So we quickly glanced through 4 different types of templates that's offered by the Aveda. And what that tells me is that it's a framework, meaning that this particular template is it's generic, so it allows you to essentially make any type of website that you want. So as a service provider, I may consider investing, learning, and purchasing a framework type template so that when I get really good at it, I can customize using the same template, the same technology. I can customize future websites to look any way I need, and I can get very efficient with it and not have to worry about I would automatically know, because I'm familiar with the template, can it do something or can it not. When the client asks me, oh, I want this and I want that, I'll be able to answer right away, and I'll be able to use what I've learned from past websites I've built using the same template. A lot of times with these frameworks, they are going to be in the best-selling WordPress themes, and they are going to be the ones with like the most sales and a lot of activities. A lot of things going on with the comments. So, like for example, if we take a look at Brooklyn, definitely a lot of activities, a lot of sales, and the reason for that is because these frameworks, they're just so generic and so customizable that they fall within any category, and it sells out. It sells a lot. And when you get really, when you invest your time and learn these types of templates, you can basically build anything. So it's kind of worth it. For me, for example, I personally like Elegant Themes Divi template. That's what I've invested in learning. So, as a service provider, consider learning a particular complex framework theme than one-offs. However, one-offs do have advantages. The advantage is that right out of the box, they will look the way you need it to look. It also gives you ideas of, okay, in terms of if I was building if I was building like a wedding website, or if I build a wedding website, it'll automatically look like a wedding website instead of me building one from Aveda from scratch to make it look like a wedding website. If I was buying like a real estate, if I was creating a real estate website by buying a one-off real estate themed template, it's already going to have built in like the property mapping type of things, the real estate listings. It will be built into those templates already. So in terms of those niche sectors, looking at a one-off may make more sense because it's going to already get 90% there, and it's going to allow you to rapidly get to the end goal of delivering quicker than an Aveda type of template or a framework type template, where I think the advantage of these is like if you're creating a lot of generic type websites for small businesses, like a restaurant business, but sometimes you'll do like a bakery, or sometimes you'll do like a sweater shop, or like other mom and pop type things, that you could really take advantage of more of the generic looking ones with not specific functionality pieces. A framework is definitely worth it. If you are a owner and you're not a service provider, trying to get your head wrapped around a framework template may not be worth it because they are going to be more complex. So consider that as well. And they may not offer close to what you want. Sometimes they do. Like this one has a wedding one, so this one might work out. But just know that there are other configurations options for, because it has to accommodate all the other ones. So something to consider. So like, let's take a look at it one-off. So let's close some of these tabs. Let's go back to ThemeForest. And let's look for one in, I saw a good example, a nonprofit. And let's look at this one right here, the first one in the nonprofits, live preview. So this one really gives me this nonprofit feel, I guess. So this might, if you were creating a nonprofit website, this might get you closer to the end goal than creating one from Aveda, as an example. If Aveda doesn't already have one already baked into it. But let's analyze the right hand side, and this is an example of, okay, it doesn't have a high sales volume, not too much activity in terms of the comments, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker. Same thing with the ratings. It doesn't even have three. It doesn't even have three ratings. But again, it's not a deal breaker because I have to consider the fact that it's under the nonprofit category, where it's not gonna get a lot of sales volume. I'm assuming that this is quite like more of the not too many people making nonprofit websites and purchasing themes off of Theme Forest for it. So that's something to consider. So okay, if I run into a scenario like this, what do I do next? That's going to be what I talk about in the third part of the series, the company. So in this case, CMS Masters. Okay, let's start vetting out the company. But that's in the third scenario. So I want to go over a template as an example of one where, okay, I'm on the fence of maybe I shouldn't purchase it, and you'll see why. So in this example, we see that, okay, it has 105 sales, so not a lot, but that doesn't mean anything. It just depends on the category. 40 comments, and when I'm looking at the comments, alright, so in terms of the comment itself, I've noticed that, wow, the last comment that was made was 4 years ago. Well, that's definitely not a good sign. It does seem like the author has, respond, because sometimes you'll have people make comments and there's no response, so that's not a good sign. But in this case, yeah, the author's responding, but it's been so long ago. 3.5 stars with on an average of 9 ratings, 3.33 on an average of 9 ratings. Okay, that's not the best metrics in the world. So let's dig a little bit deeper, and this is kind of the deal breaker for me. Is okay, last updated. Well, it was last updated a while ago, almost 5 years ago. So that tells me that most likely, well, not only was it last updated 5 years ago, it was last created like 5 years ago. Yeah, that tells me that this theme is probably no longer supported. So I wouldn't purchase this theme. Digging a little bit deeper, the last software version that is, I guess, officially supported is WordPress 4.0, and as of right now, we're at WordPress 4.9.1. So definitely not a good sign. So yeah, with this one, I would kind of be concerned about about purchasing it. In addition, let's see. Yeah, over here it's even saying, okay, the author is not supporting the items. I would encourage, if you're buying a template, to always check to see if you can extend the support. So here you can purchase additional support. Definitely go for that. It's definitely worth its weight in gold. When you don't see it, you're kind of on your own if something breaks. So definitely look for, okay, does the template even offer support? And if it does, definitely go for it. So here you definitely don't see that anymore. So yeah, I would definitely not purchase this one. So that's my process in terms of vetting out a template. So in our final video, we'll talk about vetting a template based on the company, the author that produced the template. So this is the final video in our 3-part series on how to vet out a ThemeForce template. In the past 2 videos, we've talked about the design and the template in terms of what to look out for. And in this video, we are going to talk about the company, what to look for in terms of the company or developer that created the template at hand that we're looking at. So let's get started. So in the last video, we analyzed this particular template, and we're kind of on the fence because it's only got 7 sales and only 17 comments. So it tells me that this is a very new product, a very new template, and there's not a lot of activity going on. I can confirm that it was released in the same month, last week, no, a couple days ago, 3 days actually. And we need to investigate a little bit further because we definitely don't want to be a guinea pig in terms of, oh, is this template, we definitely don't want to be a guinea pig. We don't know if this template's good quality. We don't know if we're going to buy something that is no longer going to be supported because the company decides to go, I don't know, belly up the next day, or this is the company's first template that they've created and they're just trying to get the foot in the door. We don't know. So we need to vet out the actual company itself. So let's go ahead and take a look at CMS Masters, which is the company that created this particular template. So let's take a look. So the first thing I look for when I'm vetting out a company when I'm interested in a particular template is that, okay, when were they last, when did they sign up? When did they first became a member? That doesn't necessarily mean that was when they first released a template, but it does give me a metrics that, oh, these guys have been here for a while, for 8 years now. So that's definitely a good sign for me that they're not a fly-by-night operation, that these guys have most likely have experience. But we'll figure out pretty soon when their first template came out, or at least their first template come out. Because just because they started in 2010 doesn't necessarily mean that they've released templates in 2010. And it's also possible that they may have released some during that time, but have decided to drop them during that time. So we'll find out pretty shortly. But furthermore, some other metrics that are important as well. We know they sell a lot, so that's definitely a good sign, meaning that this is maybe most likely their full-time job, which is always a good sign because then you know that they're in it for the long haul, that they have a lot of skin in the game in terms of offering really good support as well as good products or good templates. If the template's not that high or the sales is not that high, then that's a bit concerning because then you don't know if they're in it for the long haul. You don't know because they don't have a lot of skin in the game. So I typically would like high sales volume in terms of their overall portfolio. It's definitely good. The ratings, just like the rating metrics is the same as the template rating metrics, where I look at both the star ratings as well as the number of ratings. So again, just because you have 5 stars and 1 ratings doesn't necessarily mean that you're a 5-star quality author. Same thing with a 1-star rating, but there's only 1 rating for it. Yeah, it's not means that you're terrible either. So so let's go down the line, and I typically kind of quickly glance through what they write here, just kind of see what the pitch is all about. I noticed that they have 84 themes, so definitely a company or a person that is most likely very vested in selling templates. So that's a good sign. And then I'll also look at their social media profiles to see what kind of other data I can gather from them. So I'll typically will just look at the Facebook one. And a high number of followers are definitely good. It's just another metrics point. The more the better. If there's not a lot, it's definitely not a deal breaker. It's not high on my list of things to look out for, but it's just another data point where it's a positive thing. So definitely consider that. The key thing that I like to do, where I take it to the next step, is that I will look at their portfolio. We know that they have 84 different templates. And what I like to do is I like to sort it by ascending. Ascending, I think that's right. Meaning I want to look at their earliest template. So this one appears to be their earliest template. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And let's scroll down where I'm focusing on the right hand side. And this one looks like it's created in 2013. So this is what I look for when I'm vetting out a company. So I want to see what their earliest supported, I guess, template, because they could have created some more. Because again, they signed up in 2010. The earliest template I can find from them is 2013. So they either didn't create anything for 3 years, or they created some earlier but decided to drop support for them, and that's fine. But what's encouraging though is that they created one in 2013 and they're still supporting it now. So, well, actually no, they stopped supporting it since last year. But what I can gather from it is that they maintained it for 3 years, meaning that at least they have history. At least I could glean from it that they at least support their templates for 3 years. So if I was gonna purchase that nonprofit template, more likely than not, 3 years they'll support that one. So it's not like they're gonna like drop support like a year later. But taking this metric as well as all the other metrics that we looked at, their overall sales, how many stars they have in conjunction with the number of ratings of those stars, in conjunction with how long they've been on as a provider, that definitely gives me a lot more, I guess, a lot stronger feel for them. That yeah, even though the nonprofit only had 7 sales, and let's go back to that one to kind of look at what the metrics was. Even though there's only 7 sales and it's created very recent, I'm okay with that. I'm okay to purchase this template because I know that the author has created other templates. They're kind of been around for a while and they sell a lot. So like in the other one where it's been released in 2013, yeah, it's 1,642 sales. So I automatically can assume that this type of company knows how to support templates with high sales volume, has the support staff that could maintain that type of sales and support that type of volume. And let's take a look at their comments. Yeah, this hasn't been updated in a year ago, but just by looking at it, they do respond, and they do respond well. I mean, it does look thorough in terms of the response. So I'm okay. It's possible that this new nonprofit theme may have some kinks that need to be worked out because it has just been released. It is a 1.00, but I'm confident that this is an experienced vendor, that there probably maybe is not as many bugs and kinks to be worked out because they've got a lot of experience creating templates. I mean, they have 84 other ones and they've been around for so long. That just to kind of go back to the other video, just because the sales volume is not that high doesn't necessarily mean it's a no-go. We need to take it to the next step in terms of vetting out the company to see, okay, are they in it for the long haul and how experienced they are. So that's kind of it. So in this 3-part series, we went through how to vet out a template through the design process, and then the template itself, and then the company. I hope you find this useful. Any feedbacks, please leave in the comment below. Thanks.